for downloading this episode of Cork Talk with me, Tim Atkin. A weekly conversation with some of the most famous people in the world of wine.
Tony Bish got a harvest job at a winery in Gisborne to fund a ski season in New Zealand's South Island and has never looked back. After 27 years at Sacred Hill, he set up his own brand in 2013, entirely focused on Chardonnays of all shapes, sizes and styles. Sourcing grapes from some of the best vineyards in Hawke's Bay, he's on a mission to turn consumers into what he calls Chardonnistas, challenging the ABC, anything but Chardonnay, movement in the process. Hello, Tony, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Tim. Lovely to talk to you again.
Likewise, you're in New Zealand. We've got a pretty good connection. I hope I'm not tempting fate.
That's right. It sounds fantastic, yeah.
And where are you exactly? You're in Napier. You live in Hawke's Bay, don't you?
I live in Hawke's Bay. Yeah, I live in Napier, but we've got a beach house about 2.5 hours north of Napier towards the Gisborne region, out on a beautiful peninsula called the Mahia Peninsula. And we're sort of north-facing over a beautiful ocean, and it's early evening. It's gone dark now, of course, because it's winter here, or almost winter. But it's been a stunning, beautiful day, and we love it here.
I mean, could you plant vines out there?
No, it rains a bit more here than it does in Hawke's Bay, so I think probably not. And to be honest, I come here to get away from the vines, but we do enjoy the wines quite a lot here.
I don't blame you. Just tell us a little bit about your upbringing. You know, where were you born and brought up? You're a Kiwi, aren't you? Born and bred?
Yeah, born and bred Kiwi. I was brought up in a timber town. Actually, my father was manager at a very large pulp and paper company. And so I sort of grew up in a fairly sort of small town, rural sort of area. And then went to secondary school in Auckland to a boarding school after, unfortunately, my mother passed away very young, and I got packed off to boarding school at 13. So
connection to wine or not?
No, I mean, wine for my parents was very much birthdays and special occasions, and it'd be something like Black Tower or Lieb Framulch. Yes.
I mean, New Zealand wine in those days was Muller Thurgau, wasn't it? A lot of
it was. Yeah, jug wine pretty much back in those days. So it was probably a good thing they were drinking the imported wine back then. So yeah, so no wine background at all. That sort of came later.
And you got into it by chance, didn't you? But you just needed a harvest job to fund a ski season, I think, down in the South Island at Mount
Yeah,
Hutt.
That's right. Yeah, I did a couple of years of sort of pre-law in Auckland, and because you come out of school and just not knowing what to do, and I thought, oh God, I've got no idea. So I enrolled in law, but it was a bad idea. And and so after a while, I realised that wasn't my calling. So I left university and lived on a beach in Gisborne, and it was beautiful summer, and ran out of money, and I thought, well, I need a job. So the guys I was surfing with said, well, you can, there's freezing works, and I thought, horrors, no, thank you. And they said, well, you could do vintage at a winery, and I'm pretty sure I would have said something along the lines of what's vintage?
And that was Corbyn's, right?
Yeah, and so I thought, well, if I'm going to get a job at the winery, I'd rather, rather than dragging hoses around on night shift, I'll see if I can con my way into the lab. So I sort of looked at the local newspaper, and Wattie's, a very large food processing company here, were advertising to get a lab technician, and I basically just copied all the things that you would need to have to be a lab technician off their advert, put it on my CV, and sent it in.
This is pre-AI as well, right?
Yes, and pre-CV checking. So I got a job in the lab, and it was great because the winemaker works in the lab, and he was a very nice guy called Doug Wilson, and he could, I think he admired my sense of gall, and just took me under his wing to some extent, and that was my first vintage. And yes, it would have been 70% Muller Thurgau coming through the crusher in those days. Along with Palomino and a hybrid red called Bacco 22A. Yeah. And I think there was some excitement one day, and I said, what's going on? They said, oh, the Chardonnays arrived. And I think out of the 3,000-ton crush, there was one truck of Chardonnay.
God, how times have changed.
So it was very early days. Yeah.
And did you have an inkling then that you might go into wine? Did you think, no, this is actually
not at that first vintage, to be honest. I think, but it did. The penal rates pay was very good. You work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and overtime and double time and that sort of thing. So the money was really good, and so I indulged in my passion for snow skiing in the South Island. And then thought, well, this is quite a good lifestyle for a young man in his early 20s. I'll do it again. So I then went to Vitals in Hawke's Bay and did the same sort of thing there. And that's where I started to really develop a taste for the wines. They had a smaller, more premium approach. And it started to get under my skin. But I carried on skiing for another year after that, and then I think my third vintage at Vitals, I enrolled at Charles Sturt University in Australia to go do a Bachelor of Wine Science.
Which is in the famous town of Wagga Wagga, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yes. So, it was a choice of either going full-time at the Roseworthy Agricultural College in South Australia or the correspondence degree, which takes 6 years. But you commute back and forth twice a year for residential schools. And I really, at that stage, I wanted to get a lot of experience. I wanted to work in wineries and then in vineyards and get my practical grounding. Not being from a winemaking family, I thought it was important to get as much practical experience as I could. So I opted for the correspondence, and I've got no regrets. It was a really, really good experience. The peer group, Tim, was fantastic. All of the quite a mature age. I think I was 24 when I enrolled, and I was one of the youngest ones there. They were all from Australian winemaking families, vineyard-owning families, and the peer-to-peer stuff was brilliant. And I probably learned as much or more than I did through the academic, aspects of that degree to some extent. It was brilliant. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because I read a quote from you. You said that it took you 30 years before you started to get the hang of winemaking. Yeah, I mean, that's you being, that's your sense of humour and you're being modest.
My sense of humour,
was the stuff? Yeah, was the stuff you learnt there useful? I mean, what Charles Sturt is a bit more hands-on, isn't it, than Roseworthy, or was in those days?
Look, it's still very academic. You do, physical chemistry, analytical chemistry, organic chemistry, biochemistry. There's endless chemistry, and over time you learn what you can discard. And you need to know the fundamentals of the chemistry in winemaking. Absolutely, you need to know what you're doing. But with that, especially nowadays, my approach to winemaking is extremely hands-off and virtually no additives. So we've sort of gone the other direction in terms of how we look after our juices and let them express themselves in wine with a minimum amount of intervention. So so that's probably where you need to learn to relax and you need to know the parameters and know when you can break the rules, basically.
Yeah, and if you stuff up, why you've stuffed up, right?
Exactly. And that quote is actually it came from Bill Grigich Cellars, in the States, very famous winemaker there, and he was interviewed in Wine Enthusiast, I think, when he was in his mid-70s, and they said to him, what are your current thoughts on winemaking? And he said, well, I feel like I'm finally getting the hang of it. And he'd started when he was 15, I think. And I thought, well, that's brilliant because, if you think you know it all, well, you're going to stop learning. So I adopted his approach of always thinking there's something new to learn. And
I think that's true in any walk of life, isn't it? As soon as you think you've sussed it. Yeah. I mean, you went and worked for Brown Brothers a bit in Victoria, didn't you, for a while?
I did, yeah. I did a whole year with them because, vintage is one thing, but you need to, understand what happens in the cellar all year round, other times a year. And they were a very innovative wine company, of course. I think even back then in 1985, they were making wine from 23 different varietals.
Yeah. And lots of Italian stuff they had, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. It was extraordinary. And all the premium varietals. And, of course, Millwall, where we were, is quite close to Rutherglen, which is very, a very endearing region with muskets and tokais and gorgeous things there. So, I spent a year there, and that was very, very, very instrumental in getting a practical grounding of the whole process of winemaking. It was fun.
Yeah, and as you said, seeing all those varieties. I mean, you headed back to New Zealand, I think 86, didn't you, to set up Sacred Hill? Yeah. How did you meet the Masons? It was Mark Mason first, wasn't it?
It's serendipity. Like I'd gone to at boarding school, I'd met a couple of the Mason boys. One was a year younger than me, and one was a year older. We were in the same boarding house, but we weren't particularly close or anything. We just sort of knew each other through the school environment. But then I ran into the younger one, Mark Mason, at a Len Evans wine bar in Sydney. And unbeknownst to each other, he'd pursued a wine marketing degree course at Roseworthy, and I was doing the winemaking at Wagga Wagga. And it was like, wow, imagine that, because of course at school, winemaking wasn't a career option. And he was working at Len Evans, and every night he'd get all the what was left of all the bottles in a box and come around to my place, and we'd sort of finish off these wines and explore the full sort of array of wines from around Australia and around the world, really, from a really good wine bar. So that was fun. And then he said, look, I need a hand in the vineyard over summer. And at that stage, I hadn't worked in a vineyard. He said, would you come and help extend the plantings in the Dartmoor vineyard in Hawke's Bay? And I said, yep, absolutely, I'd love to do that. So we went back to Hawke's Bay and, dug holes and planted vines and posted a vineyard and did all that physical stuff. And Tim, the wages were dreadful. I couldn't afford to drink the wine I'd become accustomed to in Sydney. And so Mark and I thought, well, we better, we're going to fix this. So let's buy some grapes and make some wine and turn that into profit, and then we can afford to drink champagne again, And it really was tongue in cheek, and we did that. So we bought 5 tons of actually Sauvignon Blanc from an area now known as Gimlet Gravels, which is a very famous winemaking region in Hawke's Bay now. Less so for Sauvignon perhaps, but that's what we did. And we drove the truck ourselves up to Auckland. And I think we probably were one of the very pioneering sort of flying winemaker outfits, and flying by the seat of our pants at the same time, I think. And we went to Cooper's Creek, and they agreed to do some tank ferment for us. And the very lovely Mike Brakovich from Kingy River agreed to do some barrel ferment for us. And we made what we called a Fumé Blanc, sort of a la Mondavi.
So this was 86, was it?
86, yeah.
Yeah. And then you had a bit of a break, didn't you? Because you went to work for Ripon down south.
That's right. Yeah. So I did a couple of years doing that with Mark and David, and then I left to go down south and spread my wings. And worked at Ripon Vineyards in Central Otago for 3 years, and was the first employed winemaker in that now famous region. It was all very, very early days. I think Rolf had 1 acre when I got there of 12 varieties. Yeah. And then we knew from that, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and Riesling were sort of the ones to go for. So then we, that sort of started getting refined. But it was very interesting times. And at that stage, all the experts, all the Ministry of Ag and Fisheries people were saying, cease and desist, you guys are mad, it's never going to work.
Really?
But, the people like Rolf Mills, Alan Brady from Gibson Valley, etc., had the courage of their convictions, Tim. And
the Wild Irishman.
Yes, and the Wild Irishman, yeah, indeed. And now it's world famous.
No, it certainly is. I mean, so you went back to Hawke's Bay with Sacred Hill. When would that have been? It was 94 or something like that? And you were there 23 years, right?
Yeah, I got back to, I did a vintage with Larry McKenna and Martin Brewer. And I think that was a great experience. They call him the Prince of Pinot, but I'll tell you what, he makes bloody good Chardonnay too.
Yeah, he does.
And it was fantastic, and that was a great experience. And then back to Sacred Hill in 94, and I stayed there for 23 years.
23 years.
Winemaker.
And did some great stuff. Just tell us briefly about Hawke's Bay, because some people listening to the podcast won't have had the chance to go there. Beautiful bit of New Zealand. Just where is it? What influences its climate? And just a little bit about the soil types. You've mentioned Gimlet Gravels, which are obviously on gravel soils, but that's not all there is in Hawke's Bay. Right?
Yeah, that's right. So, Hawke's Bay is situated in the North Island on the east coast, roughly sort of, halfway down the island. So our east coast is in a rain shadow from the Great Divide that sort of goes through the middle of New Zealand. So a lower rainfall area and a very high sunshine area. We're in the sort of top 3 sunshine areas of the country. Maritime, and that, we're anywhere in New Zealand apart from Central Otago is maritime because we're so close to the ocean. And it's a region that's formed by 3 big rivers that came off the ranges, and it's sort of alluvial fans, we call them, of river wash gravels that have come down over eons, along with some volcanic material from Mount Taupo eruption, the Great Taupo Lake eruption. So there's windblown loess, volcanic material, degraded, hills and things with limestone that sort of wash down into the valleys. So it's sort of a collection of braided gravels with silt overlays, and some, sort of more older red metals. It's a very sort of free draining kind of environment. And then, your proximity to the rivers or to the sea or both will determine the mesoclimate of your particular site. So there are a wide variety of sites.
I mean, also a wide variety of varieties, as it were.
Yes, it is.
It's
Yeah.
very well suited to a bit of everything. Is it? Chardonnay, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Syrah, some amazing Syrah come out of Hawke's Bay, probably the best Syrahs in New Zealand, and Bordeaux blends. Cabernets and Cab Francs and Merlots and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's what I've always called a fine wine region. It's not, anchored to one variety. I think that there were some identity issues in Hawke's Bay originally around that. People wanted to say, well, what's it best known for, And historically, probably it was the reds. If you look at Tomato and Mission and the history of those older wineries, it was more around the Bordeaux red varieties. But then, Chardonnay's always done exceptionally well in Hawke's Bay. And then Syrah came along and sort of trumped Merlot. To some people's, disquiet, because there was a lot of planting of Merlot. And so, Syrah's done very, very well. And then in more recent years, the Bordeaux Reds, the wines are fantastic, but the market is very soft for those bigger red styles. And fortuitously for me, being a Chardonnay specialist, Chardonnay has gone really, really well.
And who was the first person to make great Chardonnay there? Would that have been Tomato as well? The Tarawa, maybe?
I think there's a few people who vie for that. I think Mission claimed to have done some of the first barrel ferments of Chardonnay in Hawke's Bay. And then you had, I guess, John Hancock through Morton Estate. Certainly made a great name for themselves, the Morton Estate Black Label Chardonnay. And so, that was one of the pioneering sort of Chardonnay styles in Hawke's Bay. And then, of course, the Vitals and Villa Maria Group.
Good point.
Really took the torch and did some fantastic things with Chardonnay over many years.
And we've said you left Sacred Hill, I think, 2013, was it? After 23?
I still worked at Sacred Hill in 13 through to 17, but I did start 17. My own brand on the side.
Okay, so you set up your own brand, Tony Bish Wines, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, did you feel it was time for a change?
Yeah, I did. I mean, 20 years in a wine company, a lot goes on that you don't agree with. And and it ultimately, it was like, look, I just didn't agree with some of the direction the company was taking, some of the cultural changes as well. And I thought, I can spend the rest of my days here grumbling about it, or I can be bold and be brave and start my own venture. And here we say, row your own waka. Canoe.
What's a waka?
A waka is like a canoe that the Maori came from Polynesia on. A dugout sort of hand built canoe basically.
And so I'm going to use that. Row your own waka.
Row your own waka. So my lovely wife Karen, late wife unfortunately, but she backed me. She said, well, if you really want to do it, Tony, go for it. And we'll just start small and build, because we didn't have a whole a lot of money or anything. We just had to sort of do it very sort of slow and organically. And our first wine was the Fat and Sassy Chardonnay, which was a deliberate sort of quirky brand name to try and combat the the old ABC thing, anything but Chardonnay, which was just utterly bored me. The fact that people even still say that or talked about it was disgraceful. So it was an old expression, and things had changed, and I thought, well, we need a disruptor. We need something that's a bit guerrilla marketing, a bit cheeky, but also tells people what's in the bottle. And the name Fat and Sassy seemed to work really well, that it was fat on the palate and sassy on the palate.
It was going to be that or row your own waka, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And when we didn't look back, the name really captured people's imagination. It's still one of the most loved Chardonnay brands down.
And that's your biggest seller, isn't it? Yeah, Fat and Sassy.
Yeah, it is. It's our biggest seller.
So you focused on Chardonnay from the start. Now tell us a little bit about your trip to South America, because I think you went there in 2014, so a year after you established your own brand, and you saw your first concrete egg. Was that the time?
Yes, that's right. But if I can just wind the clock back slightly, I went to Chablis and visited La Roche for 2 days, and I think it was 2009 or 10, and that was really inspiring. Going to a region that's just steeped in history and tradition and only makes Chardonnay. And that stuck in the back of my brain somewhere. And then when I sort of fast forward to 2013, when I wanted to do my own thing, I look back on the Chablis experience in Northern Burgundy and thinking, wow, I mean, they've been making nothing but Chardonnay for, well over 600 years. And there was so much passion and innovation, and that's what sort of led to my decision to focus entirely on one variety, which in New Zealand, of course, is extremely rare. And it was like, oh no, I think this is the answer, just to be, totally singular and focused. And
I
then
think it's unique, isn't it? Isn't it unique to focus on one variety? Yeah.
Yes, I'm the only Chardonnay specialist in Australasia, so Australia and New Zealand at this stage. So it gave me a marketing angle, I suppose, but also just there's elegance and simplicity and truth with just focusing on one thing and really exploring the genres. And Chardonnay, as we know, is what they say a winemaker's grape. There's so much you can do with it. So it seemed to be a pretty exciting idea, and I've never regretted that decision, and we will stick with only making Chardonnay.
And then the South America and the eggs. It was a concrete egg, I hasten to say.
Yeah, so South America was a long-held dream to get there, and so I organised 5 of my friends to come with me, a bit of a boys' trip, to be fair. And we timed it when Argentina joined in the rugby franchise with South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. And we went to the first game in La Plata, just out of Buenos Aires. And that gave me a date to sort of get this trip off the ground, because we'd all talked about it a bit too much and not done it. So I thought, well, bugger it, let's go to watch the rugby and then go to Mendoza. So we did that. Buenos Aires was incredible. And then flew into Mendoza, and Maxime, who you know is my export manager, her dad lived there, and he was our driver. So he drove us around wineries for 5 days and up to the Uco Valley, etc. And there we saw, in the more innovative wineries, these concrete eggs, which I've seen in
Zuccardi or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And I've also over in Chile in Maipo Valley with Antial, with Alvaro Espinosa.
Yeah.
And so, we saw these eggs, and look, I'd seen them in literature and from Europe, of course, where France, where Michel Chapoutier first invented the concept of the egg. But I'd not actually seen one up close and tried the wine from it. And they had, Malbecs and Cabernets and these sort of varieties in these eggs. But everything they told me about them, I thought, God, these suit Chardonnay. And so I got very excited about, the whole idea of using egg fermenters to produce some unique styles of Chardonnay.
I mean, you've done oak eggs, haven't you? And I think you were the first person to commission your own concrete eggs back in New Zealand. Did you actually make them in New Zealand or have them made?
I made them, yeah. I found a concrete manufacturer stupid enough to listen to my crazy ideas. I think he regretted it. It's a bit like making an omelette, Tim. You can't do it without breaking some eggs. And there's a paddock out the back of Hastings. So there's a bit of a graveyard of some failed
of broken eggs.
Broken eggs, because they're tricky to make. But we persevered, and mainly because the freight cost of importing them from Sonoma was the nearest producer in California, and the freight was nearly as much as the price of the egg.
I mean, they literally weigh several tons, don't they? I mean,
2.2 ton each. Yeah,
they're 2.2 tons. Yeah, that's.
And they wanted to send them to me in a steel frame, which they wanted back. So I had to sort of ship the thing over in a steel frame and then send the frame. I was like, oh no, carbon footprint's a nightmare. So we'll make them. So this is what. Here we have another expression. It's called the number 8 wire approach, Kiwi ingenuity, where if you can't buy it, you just make it.
You just make it. I love that. Just tell us a little bit about your fruit sources. I mean, do you own vineyards or do you buy fruit from other people?
No. So we it's been a journey, but we are in an extremely happy place right now. We have 3 vineyard suppliers. One is very small. It's a Skeetfield single vineyard block, which is only 1 hectare. And they are the oldest Chardonnay vines that I'm aware of in Hawke's Bay. If there's older, I haven't found them yet. So 36-year-old dry farmed Mendoza Chardonnay vines. So a bit of a treasure.
What's that called, that block?
Skeetfield.
Yeah.
Because they used to skeet shoot on it, clay bird shooting. The family were experts, national champions in skeet shooting. And so they called this paddock the Skeetfield. It was covered in broken skeets. And you won't believe it, but the family surname is Gunn, G-U-N-N.
So that's one source, and you got 2 more.
Yeah, that's right. And then the other 2, one's called Cork Farms. Cork is a native bird, a very, very well-run vineyard operation. They've got quite a few different varieties and a farm and some apple blocks, etc. And their Chardonnay is exceptionally good, and was supplying Vital Legacy Chardonnay and Villa Maria Reserve and those wines prior to Villa Maria's demise, and purchased by Indivin, and then Indivin let go some high-end fruit contracts, which is to my advantage. So I picked up quite a lot of Chardonnay from that block. And the other one is called Two Terraces, owned by Ian and Linda Quinn. And they're fastidious and very, very passionate growers. And they also supply quite a few winemakers, colleagues of mine that you will know.
Yeah.
But we get a large slice of their Mendoza Chardonnay as well. And so, yeah,
didn't you buy from Rifleman's at some point?
I did not off the old vine block that made the Rifleman's brand, but I did get Chardonnay from that vineyard for the early Fat and Sassy's that was off that vineyard. But then I thought, like, I need to get my own independent sources. And
so 3 of those.
And so, we've got those 3. And it's wonderful because I sat down with Bruce Nimmin, the manager of Cork, and Ian and Linda Quinn, winter before last. And we just talked about, my journey and where we're going with the brands, and sort of keeping them really engaged and talking about regenerative farming and all sorts of things. And Bruce says, well, when we set up Cork Farms, our mission was to produce the best Chardonnay grapes in Hawke's Bay. And that was the founding reason for getting into it. And Ian and Linda Quinn said, well, that was the same for us. When we came back from traveling and living in Hong Kong, we decided we're going to produce the best Chardonnay grapes in Hawke's Bay. And I'm sitting in the middle going, well, I've just got the right guys on.
You say you're both great.
Yeah. Fantastic.
How many different Chardonnays do you make? I think there are 10, aren't there? I mean, we've talked about Fat and Sassy. You've got an amber wine. You've got all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, we don't do the orange wine anymore. We did that for a couple of years, and it was great, but it kind of just didn't feel like it was the right direction for me. So we don't do that, but we do. I think we have got up to 10 now, but not all of them are released. So we've got some real sort of small parcel special projects which we're sort of sitting on. And
10. We're going to quickly try 3 of them, so you can tell us a little bit about them. If people can hear the sound of me opening a screw cap and pouring myself a glass of wine at 9:15 in the morning. This is, first of all, this is Golden Egg, Hawke's Bay Chardonnay 2024. Golden Egg is a concrete egg, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So we called it Golden Egg because the taper of a classic hen's egg, the taper from the meridian from the middle up to the top is called a golden ratio. It's a Fibonacci sequence number. And so anyone that's into esoteric maths and understands, Fibonacci is the shape of the DNA spiral and the universe, and used in stock market analysis charts and all sorts of things. So it's a bit of a magical number, Fibonacci. So when we built our own eggs, we built them exactly to the Fibonacci sequence ratio.
Okay. And you're still using the same eggs that you built, right?
Yes, we are. Yeah. We've got 6 concrete eggs now. They hold 1,600 litres each. And so, Golden Egg is made in these beautiful, concrete egg fermenters, and the eggs do several different things. The much talked about aspect is the suspension of yeast that occurs after fermentation is complete.
So the lees are sort of moving all the time. Basically.
Yeah, these sort of like natural convection currents that keep everything moving, and of course, when things are moving, things break down or things happen faster, don't they? So. In the case of yeast, what we want is the breakdown of the yeast cell wall after fermentation is complete to give breadth, complexity, and palate texture. And of course, most people know that's how champagne is basically made, is to, bottle it, ferment it and bottle, and then age it for 2 to 5 years on the lees in the bottle to get that breakdown. It's called yeast autolysis, which gives it that brioche, fresh bread character.
I call it all the Y's. It's the nutty, toasty, bready. It's all those things, isn't it? Really,
exactly. And that balance.
Tell me about the second one. So,
and that balances the acidity that champagne has. Yeah. And if you didn't have that textural, you wouldn't be able to drink the stuff with Lisby acid. So
that's true. I mean, that's a delicious wine. Where can people buy these wines? I mean, go onto your website if they want to buy them locally in other markets, because you export, don't you, as well, out of New Zealand?
Yeah, we do. So they're in the Majestic stores. So
great.
Yeah, so
fantastic! I didn't know that.
180 stores or more, I think, in the UK. Stuff. So Majestic Wines have been a great supporter. Yeah,
that's good. I'm pouring myself Heartwood now, which has obviously got a barrel on the front, or rather, it's got a piece of wood. So that's wood.
Yes. So Heartwood is. we call these two the yin and yang of Chardonnay, so egg versus oak. So Heartwood is 100% barrel fermented in 228-litre barriques, French oak. And there's a big story around the whole oak aspect to our business as well, Tim. We've aligned with one cooperage, where single variety, single cooperage, and that is a company called Taranso, parent company Shen. Fabulous family company. They were originally the barrel suppliers, in-house cooperage for Hennessy.
Because they're in Cognac, aren't they?
In Cognac and Merpan, that's right. But then over time, when LVM formed, and then the H was going to get added on, Hennessy, into that group, one of the shareholders and CEOs said, "Look, I don't want to be part of LVMH. I'll leave and I'll take the cooperage as my payout, sort of thing." And so the family sold the cooperage to Hennessy and then bought it back out of Hennessy again.
And that was Taranso today.
Yeah.
I mean, the oak is very beautifully done here. Are you using Malo or not?
Yes, we are. But the thing with Taranso is that they season their oaks so bloody well that you get these really nice, spicy characters, and you never get any hint of overt toast or grainy or anything untoward. They're super disciplined cooperage. And we just love what their barrels do for our wines, and they're bloody expensive, unfortunately, but they're really, really good.
But they weigh less than a concrete egg, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
because they're full of air.
Yeah,
than concrete. Yeah, right, let's do the Two Terraces, which is still one of your kind of Grand Cru sites, isn't it? Really, it's your single vineyard wine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a single vineyard site for me and Linda Quinn. This site has a really distinctive aromatic quality. Hoping you'll be able to see that. I describe it, Tim, as culinary herb. It's like having a fresh bouquet garni of tarragon and thyme and marjoram you just picked out of the garden. And it's got that on the nose, and it's there every year. It's a vineyard characteristic, and on that basis, we thought we would elevate that vineyard to single vineyard status. It's not.
And does that get wood and eggs or not?
It is all in wood. Yeah,
all wood. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So different selection of barrels. We're at the sort of height, Tronçais, the sort of really tight grain barrels. It's got such intensity that vineyard. It's really a really mouthful of zingy freshness, and it handles the oak beautifully. So that's got 60% new oak in it, and the rest are seasoned barrels.
I think they're three delicious wines. And so anyway, anybody listening in England, you can get these in Majestic. We've mentioned it in passing, this ABC, the anything but Chardonnay crowd. I mean, are there people still saying that? I mean, it seems crazy to me that Chardonnay gets a bit of a bad rap sometimes.
Yeah, I think we've just got through all of that. I think maybe the boomers still carry a bit of that baggage, but I think I've converted that now. ABC to me means always buy Chardonnay.
Well, I mean, it's funny, isn't it, that sometimes we play this parlor game where you do the kind of 6 greatest red varieties in the world and the 6 greatest white varieties in the world. I mean, some people would vote for Riesling, number one. I go with Chardonnay every time. I think Chardonnay is diverse. It makes, many of the world's greatest white wines. I mean, what's to complain about, really?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I absolutely adore it. I mean, if I'm not drinking Chardonnay, I will be drinking Riesling, though.
Yeah, exactly. But we can call ourselves Chardonnistas, right?
That's right. So Chardonnays is a word we came up with. It's sort of like
I did it. I like it.
It encompasses everything about what we do with Chardonnay. It's our family expression. If you buy wine from us and join our wine club, you become a Chardonnista, and sort of try and create a bit of a culture of wine and food and family and friends, and it's a lovely connotation, and just enjoy all the diversity that Chardonnay can bring to the table.
Do you think it's New Zealand's best variety? I mean, I'm amazed by how much Sauvignon is planted in New Zealand. I mean, it's something like it's over 70% of exports. I don't know what it is in terms of plantings, but it wouldn't be far off that, would it?
Oh, look, it's become sort of, unfortunately, sadly, it's kind of become commoditized. And there's a lot of it, and there's a big oversupply at the moment. I mean, yes, it's very, very good. I can't drink it. I find I went through, I've made millions of litres of it in my time for Sacred Hill, but now it barely graces my cellar at all, unless it's a more eclectic barrel fermented style, a complex style,
like Cocoa or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Clos Henri or something interesting like that. So otherwise, it's just not my thing, but. we won't put it down because, my God, it put New Zealand on the map. And it's been a phenomenal...
Well, it pays the bills, right?
It pays the bills, yes.
Well, not yours, but other people's.
But for the industry, yeah. So, it's got its rightful place. But, Chardonnays are certainly our thing, and it's just got this wonderful complexity and no ceiling on price. Tim, you can, you're not going to pay, 80 pounds for £100 for a bottle of Sauvignon, are you?
No,
from
you're
New
not.
Zealand.
No.
So, but you would for Chardonnay if it's good enough.
Yeah, I think that's true. Just to ask you something about your winemaking style. I mean, you've talked about, your early days at Charles Sturt and how you've changed over the years. But I think you described it somewhere as being new world science with old world gut feel. Just unpack that for us. Say how does that work in the winery?
I think, how we process our Chardonnay, it's that all the black label wines that you're seeing are all hand-picked. We whole bunch press them so that it's literally get tipped directly into the press. And the juice comes out of the press and quite often goes straight into the vessel that we're going to ferment in. So without any settling and no additions, like nothing is added to it. And so it's cloudy, it's warm, and it goes into concrete eggs and into barrel. And it kicks off in a spontaneous fermentation, indigenous yeast, we're not adding anything. And it's this wonderful sort of hands-off approach. It might make me look lazy, but it actually works really, really well.
You don't have to do anything because you've got good grapes, right?
And you need to know, so you need to understand, it has to be really, really clean fruit, and we are meticulous at hand picking. There can be no corruption in the fruit. And you just got to get everything right and the right oak selection and all that sort of thing. But then we get these, we call them high turbidity ferments where there's quite a lot of solids. And we get the really good mouthfeel and some glycerol production, some textural aspects.
They're delicious ones. It's a bit of benign neglect, and almost you're watching it, but you're just letting this thing run.
Oh, look, we watch. Yeah, we're all over it watching it, and temperature controlled barrel room. I'm very rigorous on. The barrel room runs at about 10 degrees Celsius. It's quite cold in there, and inside the barrel, which of course is quite insulating. We don't let the ferments get over 19, 20 degrees. I want to keep that elegance and palate length and finesse. So, there's a lot of different parts that seem, relatively hands off, but they all work together in the right way. And I think that's a gut feel thing of just, knowing when not to intervene. And I've just become very, very gun shy of any additives. We don't need additives to make good wine. We need a bit of sulfur before bottling, of course, to preserve the wine for its longevity, because these wines are living 10 or 12 years. But other than that, we're getting away with virtually no additions at all, which I find wonderful. And that lets the vineyard shine. So the philosophy is to let the vineyard shine.
Yeah, I like that very much. Yeah, just talk about yours is a family business. It's got your name on the label, and your kids are in the business now, aren't they? I mean, how did you get them involved?
Yeah. So I had 4 kids, and my oldest son Oscar, he's now full time since 2023. Yeah, and he's done his EIT postgraduate winemaking. He's got a finance degree and various other qualifications, and his WSET. He's sort of working through that. A great kid. I've always we really enjoy working together, and he's been involved in all the blendings and vintages since we've started. Now he's full time, which is wonderful. And then my youngest of the 4, Genevieve, is a young sommelier, and she's working in a very, very famous wine bar in Melbourne called the City Wine Shop. And she's with a team of really good somms there, and she's doing WCT level 3 this year, and may do the diploma. So she's our sort of secret marketing weapon. So she's done a marketing degree and PR communication. So she wants to be in the consumer interface and represent our wines in the Australian on-premise market. Sounds
like the future is nicely assured, really. If you've got 2 of the 4 going into the business, really.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and it is a really good vibe. And we've all just actually got together in Yarra Valley in Melbourne last week, and went up to Yarra Valley is a wonderful wine region, just an hour out of Melbourne, and spent 3 days visiting all the best Chardonnay producers over there, and had a lovely Airbnb house, and my grandson came over. He's 2 years old, Oscar's boy. So one of our newest wines, Tim, is called the Family Chardonnay, and it's just celebrating all things family.
That's good to hear. I mean, the final question is how do you get away from wine? I know you're a keen gardener, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, we've got a beautiful soil at this the property we're on in Mahia. The beach house has we've got about 5,000 square meters here, and two big vegetable gardens and an orchard of citrus trees, and we grow pears and pomegranates and persimmons and all sorts. So I'm a tourist. I like my hands in the dirt. Yeah, I really do. And we've got this beautiful coastline, and our neighbours have got a lovely boat, and they take us out fishing whenever we can. So, and we literally eat off the land and the ocean, and it's wonderful. I like cooking. And so, yeah, we have a wonderful time growing our own produce and catching fish and putting it on the table with some great Chardonnay.
It sounds idyllic. I think, New Zealand at its best. I bet you're glad you didn't become a lawyer.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. That would have been terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you, tasting the wines. It's been too long, and I very much hope to see you either in the UK or maybe down in New Zealand. I've not been for ages, actually. It's probably time for a return trip.
I very much look forward to it.
See you soon, mate.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Cheers.
Great to catch up with Tony, and I'm so pleased that he's putting New Zealand Chardonnay in the spotlight. Next week on Cork Talk, my guest is the philanthropist and wine entrepreneur, Jerry Lockspizer. Join me then.
Thanks for listening to Cork Talk. If you want to read more reports, articles and tasting notes by me, go to my website, timatkin.com. You can also follow me on Twitter @TimAtkin and on Instagram @TimAtkinMW. See you next week.